Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to this late afternoon taste challenge. I have two 40% alcohol Canadian blended whiskeys. And I better hold off on it. Here's what they are. This is premium Canadian Lake. Canadian whiskey with natural flavors, bottled by Oak Park Distilling Company, Baltimore, Maryland. Introduced in 1992. So there's the little lion up there holding a maple leaf representing the King Charles III, King of Canada, and the Bahamas and Jamaica, and the Falkland Islands, head of the Commonwealth. Okay, and today is Commonwealth Day. The United States is not part of the British Commonwealth yet. But today is Commonwealth Day for all you Canadians watching, and English people, and Welsh. And it was known as Empire Day. And then in 1959, they started calling it Commonwealth Day. But it was Empire Day. All right, anyway. Canadian Lake, bottled in Baltimore, I think it's actually Baltimore County, but it says on the bottle, Baltimore, Maryland, by Oak Park Distilling Company. I think the actual name of the distillery is Majestic Distilling, but it's hard to say with Sazerac using all these alias names. Yeah, that's right. I said Sazerac. Now this has that fancy Sazerac, like molded, I don't know what you call it, elegant neck. If you get it in plastic, if you get it in the 750 milliliter bottle, it's still plastic though. Now Sazerac does make some of these in this style in glass. It's kind of nice looking in glass. All right, anyway, another weird thing about this product, it has the same exact label as Canadian Leaf, which I had previously bought on a road trip somewhere, except it says Leaf instead of Lake. Everything else is identical, and it's also from Oak Park Distilling in Maryland. Now this is Gran Legacy, introduced in 2006. 2006. Jack the Beanstalk says Southern Comfort and Cherry Pepsi. Okay. However you want it. Now here's Gran Legacy, Canadian whiskey with natural flavors. And there's the Crown, which I don't know what that's for, because they got that on the Kentucky one, the Kentucky blended whiskey. Copper pot still, which almost assuredly this is not produced with. It's got a tactile label though. If you feel it, you can feel the raised plastic on the letters. It's like a matte finish. This was introduced in 2006 as a private label for CVS Pharmacy. CVS Pharmacy. But and it's bottled by the Legacy Distilling Company in Kentucky. Yeah, also known as SAC, Buffalo Trace. But anyway, I was doing trademark research a few minutes ago. Come to find out, CVS Pharmacy abandoned the trademark, which I was not shocked to see, because they used to sell all kind of Gran Legacies in the CVS Pharmacy here. Canadian, Scotch, which I'd never bought, vodka, gin, rum, all kind of stuff. Okay. Then you went back and it was not as much there. And I thought that was a little different. And then I went back like the fourth time and it was none there except for the vodka. And I was like, oh yeah, I see what's going on. They're phasing it out. And then I went to an independent liquor store in Kenner, Louisiana, and they had Gran Legacy. And I thought the same thing, this Canadian whiskey. I don't know about other brands. I didn't go through the whole store. But I said, well, that's peculiar, because I know it's a CVS brand, pharmacy brand, because in Louisiana, CVS sells liquor. Like other states allow that too. Most states don't. So, but I was researching it today, and it said that CVS Pharmacy abandoned the trademark. I said, huh, probably wasn't a big seller like they had hoped. Well, then I saw a second bit of information. It said that last year, I think it was late last year, like December or November, December, late last year, Casey's applied for the trademark. In other words, since CVS abandoned it, it's floating out there for whoever wants it, right? And so they said that Casey's, formerly known as Casey's General Store, applied for it. Now, I know I read an article about Casey's. They said that Casey's, and I used to see those convenience stores and gas stations when I would take road trips, and I plan on taking more, but take road trips to like Arkansas and Missouri. You would just drive around and you would see all the time right off the interstate be Casey's General Store, and they'd have gasoline and beer and, well, anything a convenience store has: potato chips, aspirin, the normal stuff. But now they say they're making a big push to expand across the whole South and the Midwest. Casey's, like they're on an expansion. Whether that's going to work, I don't know. They don't call it Casey's General Store anymore. It's just called Casey's, like convenience store. But I used to like the old general store sign. It kind of looked kind of neat. But I said, oh, look, they're taking it over, or trying to, probably get approved. And that's telling me they're coming to Louisiana because Louisiana allows convenience store liquor sales. I said, well, what do you know? So I found that out a little while ago. All right. So Gran Legacy lives. No one cares, but it lives. So I could see that the Canadian Lake looks a little lighter. This one looks a shade dark. Let's say a half a shade darker. I don't think it's a full shade, but it is darker. So bottled in Maryland, bottled in Kentucky, produced probably at the same distillery in Canada. I don't know that, but I would strongly assume that. And that's just because Sazerac actually owns a distillery in Canada, and their goal was to move all their production to that distillery. They had been doing some outsourcing for a while, like with the Seagram's VO and the Seagram's VO Gold, which they kept going. I saw some in the store today. Seagram's was going to get rid of it. I mean, Diageo was going to get rid of it. But Sazerac decided, I guess, we're not getting rid of that because I still see it. And that's an 8-year aged. Although, on the other hand, if they phased it out in 2016 and they had some aging, it could have kept going right till last year, and then it could have killed it. I don't know. It might if you start seeing it disappear, well, yeah, you'll know they just discontinued it. But when they had bought VO Gold, Diageo made an agreement that they would continue to produce it for Sazerac for, I think they said 6 years, or could have been 8, but I think they said 6. But the whole goal was to bring all the production to the Sazerac distillery up there in Canada. Okay, I don't know what that was. Okay, I could show you what Sazerac says about that distillery real fast. That's not what I'm looking for. Trying to see. Oh, visit our distilleries. Here you go. Sazerac House, that's in New Orleans. Domaine Sazerac de Segonzac, that's in France. Buffalo Trace, we all know that in Kentucky. Oh, here we go. So I'll show you this screen share. I'll show you what they're saying about the distillery. I think it's kind of dated though. It's probably more up. Old Montreal Distillery. Our facility dates back to 19 with an illustrious legacy of spirits innovation. Located near the old port. I don't know where that is. Stunning view of the city skyline, majestic Mont Royal in the background. That means Royal Mountain. Montreal's status as the epicenter of the Canadian whiskey industry is firmly established in the mid-20th century due to the success of master blender Sam Seagram Company. Bronfman passed his knowledge directly to Seagram master blender Art Daw, who in turn passed it to our master distiller blender Drew Mayville. The lineage continues unbroken. Yeah, so they bought this from Seagram's. It was Seagram's distillery. And they hired Drew Mayville, the Seagram's master blender, for them for the last 25 years. It seemed like he would have retired by now. He will. So that's probably all coming from there. Okay, they also have the Barton 1792 distillery, which I toured. Great tour. And Buffalo Trace was a great tour. A. Smith Bowman Distillery, yeah, in Virginia. I've heard people say good. John Paul Distillery in India, Goa, India. Definitely have not been there. All right, so you get the picture. You get the picture. Tommy Carroll says, cheers, Louisiana Liquor Reviews. Hope you had a good weekend. I did. It was restful, quiet, nice. All right. So right now I've done 8 Canadian whiskey challenges. I've gotten 8. I've done 8. So I've gotten 6 correct, 6 correct, and 2 wrong. 6 correct and 2 wrong. Well, considering the tough situation of them tasting so similar one to another, the Sazerac Canadian whiskeys, I guess that's a pretty good record, 6 and 2. I'd like to, after this challenge, now this one could be a failure and be 6 and 3 out of 9, but I'd like to get up and really just start winning. What's the purpose of the blind taste test? Well, the purpose is some people get these ideas in their mind that I know my whiskey, I'll never mix it up with anything else. I would never change from my Jack Daniels or whatever it is. And you say, yeah, but could you really tell it apart from a bourbon? Oh, yeah, no doubt. Well, you don't know that until you do the blind taste test. Now, if you do 10 blind taste tests and get it right 9 times, that's a good indication that you could tell it apart. But if you do it and get it right 5 and get it wrong 5, that might be an indication that you don't know what you're talking about. But it has to be a true blind taste test. What does this smell like? Well, mostly sweet corn, honestly. Yeah. Like, we know how corn smells, so that's what it smells like. Corn flour, cornmeal. This smells more like vanilla. You say natural vanilla extract. That's what it smells like. Is there any corn in the aroma? Oh, yeah, a little bit. Anything else? I could say rye whiskey, and that's probably true, but it's a tough draw. You know, you got to sniff like, make yourself pass out before you can pick up the rye. Same thing here. Let's get it going in. Sugar, sweetness, sugar. sugar, vanilla, sweet corn. You say, oh no. And a little oak barrel. Okay, honestly. You say, but oh no, that tastes like a glass full of sugar. Or it sounds like that's what you're describing. Yeah, that is. So if you wouldn't want a 40% alcohol glass full of sugar, liquid sugar, you might want to pass on it. But I'm just giving you an honest assessment. This one has more vanilla, but it's still sugary. You get the corn flour or cornmeal or whatever corn product they're using, probably corn grits, but coming across like that. They're both medium bodied. They finish semi-sweet, or let's say semi-dry. You say, well, it's 50-50, so the same, right? Right. Just want to emphasize the semi-dry, but yeah, it's about equal. Which one would I prefer? Oh, obviously the one that's cheaper. Now, Canadian Lake was $15.99 at Total Wine and More when I bought it. That was like a year ago. It took me that long to get to it. And it's still $15.99. Now you say, what about with the tariffs? Is that going to change it? It could, but they probably have a bunch of backstock in the warehouse over there in Louisville or Frankfort, Kentucky, and all the distributor warehouses. So they've already paid the taxes on this. So that wouldn't change these. Anything that's already in the pipeline on this side of the border is not going to affect. If the price jumps up 25%, you'll know that the store is just doing that to get it, to try to hit you up on 25. You know what I mean? The store is just trying to hose you because they've already paid the tax. All right, the liquor's on the shelf. That's all done. So if they run back and they add 25%, you're getting ripped off. That should not even take effect for months. And more than likely, it ain't going to take effect at all because it's all just a power play that they're trying to do to get, really, he's trying to get rid of he's trying to get where there's no tariffs. This is what he's trying to do. This is what the president of the United States is trying to do. Get it to where there's no tariffs. Like none. You say, well, why would he raise them? I said the power play. So none. Like zero tariffs on your goods, and you put zero tariffs on our goods. But see what they're going to say. I know what they're going to say across the border. But then we can't compete. Our farmers won't be able to compete with your farmers. You'll overwhelm our agricultural system. And so the U.S. president is going to say, but wait a minute. It's not like the old days before January 20th of this year, where we make you pay 10% extra on eggs that you send across the border. So there's a 10% tax on your eggs. But you charge a 200% tariff on our eggs. And you say that's to protect your farmers. It's not going to work like that anymore. It's not going to be, you got 200% tariff on this or a 300% tariff on chicken, poultry, meat. And you say, well, we can only charge 10 or 15%. He said it's going to be even. You want to make it 100,000 million %? Fine. Or we could optimally make it zero. If you can't compete, don't get in the game, is what he's saying. And they're saying, you're just tricking us. You're trying to use Jedi mind tricks to make us become the 51st state. And he's going to say, well, if you were the 51st state, or really 10 new states, 10 provinces, 10 new states, then there would be no tariffs. I mean, it would be 0% across the board, and it wouldn't have to compete because it'd be all one country. And they say, you're not going to do it to us. So that's the whole thing on that. So, but the whole getting back to the original point, these should not change in price anytime soon. If they do, like tomorrow, something's up. And it ain't the government, and it ain't the state government, and it's not the distributor. It's your local store trying to play games. because they bought that stuff months ago. They've probably been having it in the warehouse for a year. So don't fall for that. Am I going to be devastated if I can't get Canadian whiskey? Why would I be devastated? I like it all right. I mean, I'm not like in love with it. It wouldn't matter to me. I'm just telling you the truth. It wouldn't matter to me. I can get enough bourbon around here to stay in business for the next 1,000 years. And honestly, they kind of like the same thing. Now, some people are going to flip their lid over that. Oh, yeah. What about reciprocal tariffs? Well, I just talked about that. So, yeah, I mean, you might have made the comment before I started talking about it, but yeah, that's the story on it. Is bourbon whiskey really that different from Canadian whiskey? Not really. Think about it. It's mostly corn. It's like most of it is like 70% corn. Canadian corn, Montana corn, Nebraska corn. It's corn, normally. And then it'd be a good percentage of rye. Let's say I'm just making up a number. Let's say it's 75% corn. And then it's 15% rye. And it's 10% malted barley, which I doubt it's that high. Malted barley is probably 5%. But whatever percentage you want to use, up to you. Doesn't really matter. Canadian whiskey can use new charred oak barrels, but usually they have a tendency to age it in used barrels. It's fine. Bourbon has to be aged in new charred oak barrels. That's the big difference. But you could take a Canadian whiskey and age it in new charred oak barrels for at least 2 years, and you could make straight bourbon whiskey. You just can't call it bourbon because it's not made in United States. They did that with Crown Royal bourbon mash, and the American bourbon companies flipped their lid. They went crazy, saying they're trying to undermine us. But they never said it was a bourbon. They said it was a bourbon style Canadian whiskey. But that's all they had to say, the word bourbon, and they went crazy. See, in that case, I'd defend the Canadians because I had to defend the Canadians in that case because they never claimed it was bourbon. They said it was bourbon style whiskey. Oh, but then the U.S. government changed their mind midstream and said, oh, yeah, that's right. It's going to confuse the consumers. No, so you can't call it that. Who would be dumb enough to believe that? Like, who go into the liquor store, or in Louisiana's case, the grocery store, who would be dumb enough to go to an aisle and see Crown Royal bourbon mash and think it's a bourbon, when you could just look at the label and it says it was a bourbon style whiskey made in Canada, just, making it. Nobody could be that dumb, could they? So they said, oh, no, you can't do that. Now, what did that whiskey taste like? Well, it tastes like bourbon, But manufacturers don't like competition, and they like the government to help reduce competition. And that's what all of that's about. They don't want competition. Who's cutting the grass? It tastes like vanilla. Oh, I think that's right across the street. Do I like the flavor of this product? It tastes pretty good. I mean, if you like sweet vanilla, sugary, say like vanilla ice cream, you say, oh, I love vanilla ice cream. I want some vanilla ice cream that's 40% alcohol. Well, get Canadian Lake. You'll get about the same thing, except it won't be cold. You could put it in the freezer. I wouldn't recommend putting a plastic bottle in the freezer. I never thought I was getting a Stone IPA when I bought a Keystone either. Yeah, that other lawsuit was so ridiculous. You know, Stone Brewing saying we're suing Coors because people are going to go to the store and think Keystone Light is a Stone product. There ain't a person in the world, there is not a single beer drinker on this planet, on this big blue marble, who would ever go to a store and think that Keystone Light was a Stone beer, Stone Brewing. Because the people that buy Keystone never buy Stone beer. And the people that buy Stone IPA and Stone Ruination, they never think to buy Keystone Light. So that whole thing was a joke. Not a single person would ever do that. Yeah, I mean, I know, I get it. The label was like Keystone, Keystone. It's from Keith Stone. He's always smooth. But still in all, people might have like rolled their eyes and laughed it off, but nobody was going to think that that was actually a Stone Brewing Company product. I mean, that was a laugh and a joke and an insult to intelligence, if you believe that. All right, enough of that ranting. But when I see stuff like that, it's irritating, you know. Just like nobody's going to go to Walmart and say, oh, look, that's Dr. Wow. It must be Dr. Pepper. No, you're going to say that's a cheap ripoff of Dr. Pepper, a cheap private label store brand of Dr. Pepper. No one is going to think Dr. Wow is Dr. Pepper. Only a fool would think that. Pretty nice weather today in Toronto, about 7 centiliters. Supposed to go up to 17 later in the week. Going to spend some time outside. Well, that's nice for y'all. Hello, Joe. It's warm here. It's a little chill in this room, though. This room feels chilled, but that's why I'm wearing this pullover. But really, if I was sitting in the sun outside, I would feel warm. But I don't know, some kind of chill in this room. But is the whiskey helping? I don't know. I'm not into all of that. I'm gonna drink whiskey to get warm. I'll just put on this little room heater. Anyway, let me taste another sip. They're very similar. Let me check the price on Gran Legacy right now. I'm sure somebody's got it for sale. Gran Legacy. Casey's. Okay, that's coming up right now. Canadian whiskey. That's coming up right now. Casey's. Let's see who's selling it. Now there is one called Legacy. Legacy. It's got the owl. I think it's got an owl on it. I don't know anything about it. I never bought it. It's not no cheapo like this one. GWS USA. Here's a Paducah, Kentucky. Global Wine and Spirits. Okay. Global Wine and Spirits, a liquor store in Paducah, Kentucky. They've got it. Told y'all they when CVS got rid of it, when they just killed it, the distributors probably had thousands of bottles. So they just said, well, sell it to whoever wants it. Because I bought my bottle for $9. $9. Because the guy, or was it $8? I went to that store in Kenner and I said, oh, how much is this? I just wanted to know the price. I didn't want to buy it. I said, what is the price? He said, oh, $10.99. But I said, okay, because that's what CVS had it for, which is unreasonably low, incredibly low. He said, you want to buy it? You want to buy it, my friend? You want to buy it, my friend? I said, no, I was just asking for the price. He said, for you, today, for you, $9. I think that's what he said, $9. No, he might have said, no, I think he said $8 or some crazy price, some low, super low price. I was like, I'll buy it. No, I think it was like $8 for a handle. I said, well, okay. I still got it because my friend David, he didn't like it. He was like, I don't like this stuff. You can have the whole bottle. I said, okay, I'll take it since I bought it. Let's see. Okay, so they got it, $13.99. That's actually not a good price. It's actually not a good price considering I paid $10.99. Canadian Lake. Turtle Creek Wine and Spirits. They got a regular bottle for $7.99. That's what I'm saying. It's so cheap. $7.99 for a regular size bottle. $7.50. $7.99. Can you get Canadian whiskey cheap? What are you talking about? You can get it really cheap in America. I don't think in Canada you can get it cheap. I think in Canada you can't get it cheap. So they're saying we're going to add 25% tariff. Yeah, but it'll still be like 200% cheaper than Canada. All right. Pastor Don Elborn says 75 and gorgeous in Mandeville, Louisiana today. Pastor Don, that is a beautiful temperature. And it was cooler here in my town, south of the lake, southwest of the lake. Oh, man. Have you ever seen the Alberta Premium Cask Strength Rye? Yes, but I didn't like the $65 bottle price. But I've got a regular bottle, you know, the regular Alberta Premium, 80 proof. I got that for Joe. If I told you the price, you'd think I was lying. You get bottles of Canadian whiskey I've never seen in Canada. I know. I think they're export only. And yeah, I think Quebec is the cheapest booze, but it's still very pricey. Yeah. Right. Quebec is the cheapest, and they're still not good. When I was in Quebec in 2000, 25 years ago, I was driving around and nobody could speak English. But I went to this convenience store on the highway, and I was with people, you know, I wasn't alone. But I went in there and they had Milwaukee's Best beer. That's from Milwaukee, Miller Brewing, Milwaukee's Best. Now, it might have been made by Sleeman, I don't know. And I said it was cheap. I said, Canadian, the Canadian version. Oh, it was like, for a 6-pack, it was like, I don't know, $2.99. And I had gotten a bunch of Canadian dollars when I converted at the border. I converted my money into Canadian. So it was still cheap. So I bought it and I came back home with it and I drank it. It tasted exactly the same as regular Milwaukee's Best. And then, but I didn't keep the can because I don't have room to keep import. So I got rid of all my import cans and bottles. But I remember that. And then I asked the girl, how much is the price for these potato chips? She didn't know what I was saying. She said, what you talking about? You know, like in French, what you talking about? And I pointed at the cash register, the price. Oui. And then she scanned it and it came up. I said, okay, I'll buy it. You know, bag of potato chips. It was so funny because people say, oh, you know, in Canada, all the French people speak English. I said, not where I went. I drove all through Quebec and then nobody could speak English. Anyway. Oh, I didn't mix them up yet. I forgot to check the winner. Okay, so I think this one was a little bit more traditional Canadian. So I think it's I think the Gran Legacy was a little bit more legitimate, like a little less vanilla flavored. It is the Gran Legacy. I got it right. All right. That puts me at 7-2. I can live with that. 7 wins, 2 losses. Yeah. I guess I would go with the Gran Legacy. Soon to be available at your local Casey's General Store, I think, because they applied for the trademark since CVS abandoned it. Canadian Lake, you'll see it around, maybe. But I found it right here in Louisiana. I found the other one right here in Louisiana. They're cheap as, what do they say over there in Mario, England? It's cheap as chips, cheap as chips. Do they have Zapp's potato chips in Canada? I don't recall seeing that. It was just stuff like, well, your regular Lay's and Frito Lay and well, all the Doritos. That I don't recall anything special, but I wasn't examining the potato chips. And yeah, Montreal is half English and half French. Quebec still has a lot of only French communities, same with Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, says Joe Cobb. Yeah, like they were all speaking French, But I know a lot of people from Louisiana that said they used to like to go to Canada every summer. They would go to Quebec. I said, why you always went over there? They said, because everybody could talk French. This is how the people are telling me this. They're like 65, 75, 85 years old. They said, well, everybody could talk French. I said, okay. They said, yeah, I would go all around. Everybody could talk French to me. And they would just be talking, talking French, And then apparently a lot of Canadians come down from Quebec to Louisiana so they could talk French. So sound like a fun trip. I've been to 10. I've been to 5 out of 10 Canadian provinces. 5 out of 10. Well, that's not too bad. Half, 5 out of 10. And but I knew a man from Alberta, and he was very prejudiced. He was very prejudiced against the French people. I told him, I said, I'm going to Quebec this summer. And he made a bad face. I said, what you making that face for? He said, that's all frogs out there. That's what he told me. It's nothing but frogs out there. Milwaukee's best light was my uncle's beer, 30-pack for like $15.99 in Houston, Texas. Yes, Yvonne, I remember those days. But I remember you saying if the French won the war in Canada, it would have been different for the language. Oh, yeah, it would be all French. I don't think if the French won, they would let English people continue speaking English like the English let the French speak French. Oh, I guarantee you that. If France had won the war in 1763, Canada would have one language today, and it would be French only. Just trying to get in touch with their roots. Yeah. I know a lot more Spanish than French because of many Caribbean vacations. So whenever someone speaks French to me, I reply in Spanish by accident. They are pretty similar with a lot of phrases. Oh, yeah, Latino languages. Yvonne says that Louisiana Creole, yes. Okay, anyway, today is talking about Canadian whiskey. Today is Commonwealth Day, formerly known as Empire Day until 1959, but it's Commonwealth Day. I was looking, they had the parade of flags, all the 56 countries of the British Empire. Oh, I meant to say the Commonwealth. And King Charles made a speech at the cathedral. He's the head of the Commonwealth. And well, they do typical type stuff. The schools have like little presentations, like the elementary schools. They have little talks, and they make little posters and little projects. And we don't have that holiday in the United States because the United States left the Commonwealth in 1783. But we don't want to get into that story. But with President Trump, they'll probably get back into it. That'll probably be some like Donald Trump project. He'll be like saying, we need to get back into the Commonwealth. I like the whole idea of empire. And, I mean, you can see how you could spin that, It'll be the greatest thing ever. We should have never left. I don't know why we left. We could have this huge thing. We could just run everything. It was a big mistake. And, you could just see him talking, about it, He's probably been having conferences with King Charles for like a month anyway. All right. Canadians can understand Cajun French, even with the accent. Oh, well, according to what the people told me, they would go up there all the time. Everybody, they could all talk to each other, But, you know, it'd be like somebody from Scotland. You could understand them. You might have to say, what did you say? Oh, you say, oh, yeah. Okay, I thought you were saying something else, you know. Happy Commonwealth Day. Yvonne says, great impression. Yes. All right. Well, take care, everybody. The winner is Gran Legacy, which I'm the only person on the planet Earth to ever do a review of this, and probably the only one ever will. And Canadian Lake. Well, sorry, Canadian Lake. You got to cool it on the vanilla. See you, Ron says, Joe Cobb. See you too, Joe. All right, y'all take care. And I would like it if the United States and Canada became one country, because then I wouldn't have to use my passport. Oh, man. All right. Bye-bye, everybody.